All right. Well, hello, everyone. It is noon, Wisconsin time anyway. And just wanted to say thank you all for joining me today as we talk through just using our iPad app, the Revizto iPad app for field use. We get quite a few questions about the iPad, just some tips and tricks, settings, that sort of stuff. We're going to run through a lot of that today, and then we'll talk about some workflow items and, again, just some tips and tricks. But, I do want to talk quite a bit about some of those settings and some of the enhancements that we've made to make this app more user-friendly for those field users. So just to, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Sean Hester. I'm the BDC manager for construction. So I work with all of our general contractor customers across North America. From an implementation perspective, I'm here just to help stand up products, do training, or stand up projects, do training across all project stakeholders, whether it's internal team members, trade partners, design partners, anyone who's going to be touching that project. So that's my role here at Revizto. And then Brett Suttles is also joining us today. He's our Global Director of Customer Success. So he's going to be helping out in terms of any questions that you guys have that you're going to be logging in the chat feed. And he'll work to facilitate any of those questions coming over. So what we'll do is we'll start off kind of in the beginning here, walk through some of the settings, talk through how to make this just a little more user friendly for those end users with the product. So to start off with here, I do want to mention, and you've probably heard a lot of us talking about this on the Revizto side, the iPad app functions exactly the same as the desktop version of Revizto, with the only difference being in navigation. Everything else is going to work the same. Tools are in the same spot. The tools function the same, whether you're in 2D, whether you're in 3D, whether you're in the issue tracker, it's all going to function the same. It's just the navigation that changes when you're using that iPad app. So I did want to mention that. Now, starting off in the beginning, when you open up that app for the first time, you're going to see your opening screen here, right? Now, one thing that we've added to our iPad app, and this is actually on the desktop version as well, but it was more intended for the iPad, is, let me back up here. This is the fun of using an iPad is I don't have my mouse to circle where I'm talking. So I'm going to use my computer and my iPad at the same time here. So bear with me. This little gear here, this sprocket, if you will, if I select that, you're going to see a download for field button. And what this does is it actually downloads all 2D and all 3D information, directly caches it onto your device. And that's important because if you're opening up your project for the first time, and a lot of your Revizto users know this, when I double click on my project and I open it up, unless I hit 3D, it's not automatically going to cache that 3D information down to my device. So by utilizing that download for field button, it allows that to cache quickly and automatically, right? Now, one thing to mention is, obviously file size, right? As projects get larger, if you have scan data, if you're entering that 1 to 2 gig project size, it will take some time to get this information onto your device. So, the only thing I can say there is for those larger projects, you need to be a little bit patient and just, kind of understand expectations as far as those syncing times for those larger projects. Once it's on the device, it's cached, you can use it. You don't have to be connected to that Wi-Fi connection while you walk around, which is really that added benefit of using the iPad app, right? Is not having to rely on Wi-Fi connection as you're walking around. You can still document issues. Once you get back to the trailer or the office, any new issues that you documented will be pushed up to the cloud. Any issues that have been documented outside of you will then be downloaded to So another setting that and that's going to be in the general tab here. That's the auto updates. Now, for those iPad users, I suggest turning this off. And the reason why that is because if you have your auto updates turned on, anytime someone changes the model and updates that information and syncs it to the cloud, you're gonna be pulling it down. So if you leave the trailer and you have one bar in your Wi-Fi, Revizto is going to want to update that information, and it's going to take some time. It's pretty much going to render you your iPad useless unless you go back to the trailer and then let it go through and download everything that it needs to. So by turning that auto updates off, you basically are syncing when you want to sync. So when you download for field in the beginning, when you're going to walk the site, just like I showed before, it's going to sync all that information. Every time you open up Revizto, it's always going to want to update that information. So just something to keep in mind. Turning that auto updates projects off works pretty well. Okay. Now, just a couple more things in the preferences that are worth talking about. So navigation-wise, this is going to dictate how quickly you can navigate within the models, right? And we'll get into navigation in a little bit, but you know, playing around with this and getting these set to your specific needs as to how you like them is important. So one thing I always suggest to new users is go into navigation, play around with this, and start to get the navigation to how you want it to be. Next one is going to be graphics. Now, I have this set to beautiful right now. The model I'm running is not too big. I'm running an iPad Pro from last year. It was released last year, so it's gonna work pretty well for what I'm trying to do. Now, there's gonna be some instances where we're gonna be pushing some larger models into Revizto, like we've been talking about. And by changing the settings here, simple and good, it drops the graphics down a little bit. It's not as much of a graphical hog on those graphics cards. Your edges might not be as crisp and clear, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be able to get the information. You're still going to see a duct. You're still going to see a pipe. You're going to know that it's a wall. You know, that information is still going to be there and relevant. It's just the edges of that geometry might not be as crisp and clear. The other thing to note is these settings here can also be a graphics hog. So when I'm using an iPad, I'm turning all of these off except for my double-sided materials. And it's going to substantially increase your performance on your iPad. All right, so with that in mind, those are kind of the initial settings that I wanted to discuss as far as, you know, what you do when you first get that Revizto app and you're walking through using the Revizto app with your team, your field team. Those are some things that I would definitely suggest walking the team through initially, so they understand that, or at least setting them up so that they're set up for success once they open up their Revizto app. Now, I'm going to start at 2D and walk through some tips that I have as far as utilizing the 2D information, you know, to really organize it to how you guys are going to use it. Things that you're going to want to call out while you're using the Revizto app. So as a lot of you know who are users in Revizto, we have 3 modules, right? We have our 2D module, which is what we're looking at right now. That's going to pull in any relevant construction document information into the project. That's the information that's going to cache locally to the device. The next is the 3D information. That's our virtual prototypes. Those are our coordination models, right? We have the issue tracker, which is going to be all of our issues or additional information that we're pulling in, such as 360 photos, any status photos, that sort of stuff. And then one thing that's new to Revizto is our docs integration. And right now we work with Autodesk BIM 360 docs, Procore docs, and then Box. This project right now is just set up with A360 and Procore. So you're able to pull any documents from a 2D perspective. You're able to mirror that here in Revizto and attach issues to these documents. You're able to push these documents into the 2D portion of Revizto as well, and that becomes your updating platform for those 2D documents. So if anyone has any questions about that specifically, that's something we can definitely talk about after the demo here today. We can start to schedule some check-ins with any customers who really want to have some further information about the documents integrations within Revizto. Today we're just going to be focusing on the iPad use. Now, as I was saying, I can manipulate this view here to really call out pieces of information that I'm looking at. So for instance, if I am working on just installing concrete, and that's all I'm going to be doing for the next couple of weeks, what you can use is the tagging system within the sheets here to call out certain pieces of documents or certain documents that you want to reference quickly while you're doing that type of work. So if I highlight my stairwell drawing here, and I go over to the edit button over here where the tags are, I'm just going to add a tag for self-perform, and I'm going to click done. And I'm going to add, this one's already been done there. Now let's say I want to reference my level 1 floor plan as well, because that's where we're actually doing the work for that day. And then maybe I want to reference some structural documents as well. That one's already listed as self-perform. Let's add our typical details in here as well. That's also in there. So I've added some tags to specific drawings that I'm going to be utilizing for the next couple of days or couple of weeks. All right. Now, if I click on my filter button right here in the upper left-hand side, it's going to open up my filters for the 2D documents. And from here, you can see that I can filter by all this criteria here. Right now, I'm just going to focus on those tags because that's all I'm worried about right now. Now, if I click on that self-perform tag, you can see that I've now filtered out my list of drawings specific to what I need now. So this can really help speed up that process. You know, the amount of drawings that I have in this project is not huge, right? But at the end of the day, we do have some customers who are pushing, 3,500 sheets into Revizto. That's quite a bit of drawings to go sorting through and try to find the specific detail or the specific section or whatever the case may be that I need to work on that scope of work for that day or that week. Right? So utilize those filters, utilize those tags to make you more efficient as you're moving through those drawings. So I'm just going to open up one of my drawings here, level 1 floor plan. Now, in terms of field use, one thing we always like to do when we're doing field training is start in 2D. And the reason why that is because we all know there's individuals on the project who are not as comfortable navigating 3D as say the BDC and the BIM folks on the project. You guys are living 3D all day, every day. So it takes a little bit of experience, a little bit of getting used to navigate 3D effectively. What's great about Revizto, based upon our coordinates, because that's what Revizto is based upon, is that coordinate system, is that you're able to utilize the 2D to get to 3D. So for those individuals who are more comfortable navigating a set of drawings and pulling up a floor plan and getting to a certain location because they know they're on level 1, they're standing outside this cafeteria area, they can always utilize these drawings and then click on that jump to 3D button to get to those locations. What that's going to do is it's going to highlight my floor plan in green, and all I'm going to do is double tap inside that particular room, and it's going to take me to that room. It sounds simple. It frankly is simple, but this is really a good transitional way for people to utilize Revizto from that 2D to 3D workflow, just to get more comfortable in navigating around and getting from point A to point B. Now, within the 3D environment, we also have some quick ways of navigating in 3D, so you don't have to fly around through the model. Now, as I said before, that's the only difference between the desktop version of Revizto, excuse me, and the iPad is the navigation. So as I'm moving around here, what you're probably noticing is when I'm putting my thumb down on the lower left-hand side of my iPad, what that does is it pulls up a joystick, right? And that's the way how you fly around the model, is by pushing that joystick forward, backwards, left, and right. Now, the other thing you can utilize is the right thumb, which is allowing me to move my direction that I'm flying, actually. So I just took my left thumb off my iPad. You see that that joystick goes away. And now I'm standing in one location, and I'm just moving my right thumb up, down, left, right. And that's basically changing my field of view. Okay? So using those two items together is how you're going to navigate. Again, there's individuals who it takes a while for them to get that down, just because they're not used to navigating in 3D. So what we've done is we've added some other navigational tools within that 3D environment to help them get from point A to point B, so they don't have to fly through the model. Easiest one to use is that mapping tool. That's going to be the one on the upper left-hand side. When I select that, what it does is gives me a top-down view of the project, of the model itself, along with levels on the right-hand side that I can then click through to get to different levels within the model itself. Just like that 2D jump to 3D workflow I just showed before, once I'm in the floor that I want to go to, all I need to do is double tap inside those rooms, and it's going to take me to that location. So I don't have to navigate. I can strictly use this level map, jump over to this side, double tap, and it's going to take me to that location. So pretty straightforward there. The room tool is another one that helps quite a bit as well. I don't have to jump, or excuse me, I don't have to navigate throughout the model. If I know what room I want to go to, I can just see that in my list of rooms here, select that from the list, and Revizto is going to transport me. Pretty straightforward. All right. Now, the other thing that we see used is the overlay capabilities within Revizto. This is, something that a lot of customers have given us feedback as just a very useful tool in making some decisions on the project, verifying design intent versus the the trade models that are coming in. And that's going to be that little icon down here. That is our jump to 3D or our 3D overlay button, right? A lot of you have seen this when utilizing Revizto. So that's going to overlay that 2D drawing on top of 3D. Now, the one thing I want to emphasize here is that these are very, very useful, right? But in terms of setting up the project and making sure that individuals who, again, aren't necessarily that comfortable navigating in 3D, what I like to suggest is saving viewpoints out with these particular overlays so that they can reference them quickly and easily. So for anyone who doesn't remember, that's going to be using our viewpoints tool right here. Now, if I click on that, it's going to pull open the viewpoints tab on the right-hand side. From there, I can click the plus sign either here or down at the bottom of my screen down here, and that's going to allow me to save out that viewpoint. I can then name it, my level 1, whoops. Level 1 overlay. And then come back and reference that later on, right? Pretty straightforward, but effective, because at the end of the day, you're working to set up these projects for the end users, right? That's what we're emphasizing today is those end users who are going to be, digesting this information out in the field, which means that you want to make it as easy as possible for them, and they don't have to necessarily jump through a bunch of hoops to get that information. Now, Revizto is obviously very user-friendly, but going that little extra step to get some of the stuff organized goes a long way. Now, let's just say I'm going to jump back to one of the rooms down in here in my project. All right. I'm going to go back into, let's go back into that cafeteria. All right. We have two tools down here on the lower left-hand side that get used a lot on the iPad. And that's going to be our gravity and then our gyroscope, excuse me, it's a tough one to say, tool, which allows you to pan around with the iPad itself. So if I turn on, if I click the little icon of the guy, that basically means that my feet are now planted on the ground within this particular room. Now, if I click that gyroscope, now all I'm doing is moving my iPad around, left, right, up, down, and that's allowing me to navigate. Again, making that navigation easy so you don't have to fumble around if you're not comfortable. Use the gyroscope, use that gravity to allow you then to just slide your iPad around and move around and view the area around this particular room. Now, the other thing I want to mention is the ability to click on certain pieces of geometry and hide them, right? So what I did is I just clicked on that ceiling, I hid the ceiling, and that allowed me to see the mechanical systems above the ceiling. So that's another one that we get asked quite a bit, is being able to turn those items on and off. You can obviously click on the geometry and hide it. You can also come in here to our selection tree, which is this button right here. And that allows us to filter by those links and then turn things on and off here within our list, right? And that's going to be wholesale hiding, changing of colors to specific models within the project or making them transparent. But one that we definitely get asked about when we're doing the iPad user training. Now, just like before with that overlay, you can always save these viewpoints out, right? You can always click on the plus sign down here at the bottom, or you can open up your viewpoints here, hit the plus sign here on the right-hand side, and then come back to this particular view with the geometry change of colors, as well as what's hidden and what's not. All right, and I'm actually going to turn that from green back to normal. All right, we just navigate outside here. All right, so within the last year, we added the stamping functionality within Revizto, and this is something that we're seeing used a lot on projects. And you know, on the iPad, this works very well just because it helps with the ease of use of, number one, you know, having that visual cue of what the issue is, being able to template out the information over here on the right-hand side, so I don't have to constantly add assignees, watchers, and tags to these issues after I drop them on top of a floor plan or in 3D. That's all going to be added in there for me. So just like I was saying before about setting up the projects with certain viewpoints that people are going to be using, you know, this is really part of that standardization process that we love to talk about in making the end user experience that much better. So a lot of times when we're working with customers, whether it's on a POC or we're standing up another project with them, is we like to talk about that standardization. What are things that you guys are going to want to report on? What are things that you're going to want to call out throughout the process of utilizing Revizto and building this building, that we can create stamps and tags, and then further on down the line is report on this type of information. So it's a really good time to, you know, get everyone from the project in one room and just sort of kind of talk through things that you're going to want to report about. So what I'm highlighting right now is some self-performed stamps, right? We talk a lot about punch listing because that's why the stamps were really born, was out of a need for punch listing. But we're also seeing, you know, some more design review, early on design coordination, that sort of work. These stamps work really, really well for that type of work, right? But if I go back here, the stamps work so well for taking photos on the project, for doing that documentation of things that are coming up or things that might be wrong on the project, right? So let's just say if I shoot over here and I'm focusing on this column and this beam that we have here. I'm going to go to concrete, and I'm just going to say that there's a concrete issue right here. Okay. Now within the stamping tool on the right-hand side, you're going to see the ability to take that photo right away. And you know, this is where the iPad really shines, because that real-world condition of what's happening You're going to see my beautiful weather here in Wisconsin, rainy and gloomy. But I can take that photo right away. I can post it into the issue here right away automatically. Okay. Now, if I go back to my markup, which is going to be that fountain pen, I can also take a photo, which is going to be right here up at the top, and that's actually going to allow me to annotate the issue as well. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. I'm going to use that photo, and now you see this becomes my markup. So this is a really handy way to now call out, and I know this isn't a concrete issue, so forgive me, but we can call out certain aspects of this drawing, or excuse me, of this photo, saying where we have the issue that we need to fix. And as I said, this is going to log into that issue, but it's also going to be that initial snapshot view. So if I go into my issue tracker now, and this is the view that you guys are accustomed to in the issue tracker, on the left-hand side, you'll see that my snapshot is now this photo. I can always hop into 3D and you know, start to look around, and then we can always jump to 2D, again, just like you guys are accustomed to in using Revizto. So that's a nice way to use the stamp and a nice way to be able to mark up photos that you're taking and specifying what the photo is being taken of, right? It's a concrete issue. We're going to report on this concrete issue later on, but we're going to be able to mark up that photo real time. Now, one thing you've noticed, this button right here is something that I click on quite a bit, and that's going to be our minimize, maximize. And I know it's simple and something that you guys probably use all the time, but for those end users, nice, nice. We got someone in there playing around. Perfect. Thank you, Brett. But that minimize, maximize button is one that we utilize all the time on the iPad. Obviously, you have limited screen real estate within the iPad, so this is going to help quite a bit to extend the columns within the issue tracker and then condense it so you have some more real estate to jump to 3D, jump to 2D, or jump back to that snapshot of the photo itself. Now, the other way that we're seeing the stamps used more and more, I'm going to jump to 2D here, is actually defining specific items that individual users want to come back to. So what I mean by that is, you know, before you saw me creating some viewpoints within the project, all right? And I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Greg Keller for this one, because this is one that he mentioned to me a couple weeks ago. Instead of creating viewpoints of everything that you want to come back to, you can actually create a user-defined stamp that's a private stamp, so no one else on the project can see it. And what that means is I can drop my stamp down. I can make some notes in here as far as what I want to track later on, things that I want to come back to. You know, maybe it's something that if I don't get this down right now, I'm going to miss it. But the other great thing is we can take those photos again, right? I can take a photo of the issue and come back to it, right? By using that camera button here on the right-hand side, okay? And the other thing that I want to make sure everyone understands is we can make these a private issue right off the bat here. Now, whether we're doing this on one-off like you just saw me do here, or if we go into our organize, let me back up here for just a second. If we go into the organizing of the stamps, and if I scroll down to that Sean Hester user-defined stamp, and I'm going to make that a private stamp right off the bat, that means every time I drop this stamp down, whether it's in 2D or 3D, it's just going to be specific to me, okay? And again, this is a way of keeping a list of things that you want to come back to. So now in the issue tracker, if I go back to the issue tracker, I can now set a custom filter, which is going to be our filtering button right here, and then click on that custom filter, and then come in here to my stamp abbreviations, go to those Sean Hester stamps, and I'm actually going to save a filter out, which is this button right here. And this becomes basically my to-do list of things that I'm going to follow up on, right? And whether it's specific to the 3D environment that you want to come back to, whether you're creating a section cut within Revizto, and let's just do that real quick here. I'm going to cut a section cut, and let's say this is a view that I want to come back to. Okay, I'm going to drop a stamp down here now that's private to me. That's going to go into the issue tracker, just like we've been saying. Now it's in my list, but I can always minimize this, go to 3D, and now this is the view that I want to come back to. So as I said, those viewpoints work well, but sometimes on larger projects, those viewpoints can get pretty lengthy in terms of that list because there's so many people adding viewpoints. This way, I don't have to search for a specific viewpoint. I already have a filter set up for me in my custom filters here, which goes into my presets. So here we see my name down there. And these are all the views or issues that I want to come back to. Now, let's just say, one of these issues that I documented, maybe it's something that I followed up on it. I've talked and communicated with some other individuals on the project, and now I don't want it to be public or private anymore. I want it to be a public issue that I'm going to assign to somebody else. You can do that on the fly here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to manipulate that information side of this issue. I'm going to turn it to public. Excuse me. Now everyone on the project can see it. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to assign it to the individual who actually has to go and fix that issue, right? So by keeping it private, I can get my thoughts together. I can ask the questions that I need or do that extra work to verify if it's actually an issue or not. Once I'm comfortable and know that it's an issue, I'm then going to elevate it to a public issue and then assign it to the right person. Now, the other way we're seeing the stamps used is from some of our customers is actually teachable moments out on the project. Now, what I mean by that is, we have a lot of individuals that make up the construction team who are working together to build this building, right? And in terms of the trades, you have a detailer who's creating those drawings, and they're going through and they're doing that initial drawing of how that system's going to work. After the designers, of course. Designers start, then we have the detailers who are putting a little extra information in there and really routing those things how they think they're going to show up. But the folks who are doing the installation, obviously, those are the ones who have, typically, they have a lot of field experience. They have a lot of experience in terms of what's an easy way or a better way to actually do routing or install something or whatever the case may be. So what we're seeing is more and more from a trade-specific perspective is actually having, like a duct reroute, for instance, here, or even just a teachable moment stamp. There's a lot of different ways to describe it, right? But you can always drop that stamp down. This is going to actually assign to the person who's doing that detailing, and you can add the comments in there as far as, hey, if you would have routed it this specific way, we could have saved a couple of bucks on a fitting, or whatever the case may be. You can always mark that up, right? You can mark up where that specific fitting is, call attention to that, and it's not necessarily calling out someone and getting them in trouble. It's, like I said, it's a teachable moment. It's a, hey, let's review this at the end of the job. Let's look at all these duct reroutes that we found, and let's make sure that we talk about this so the next project, we don't necessarily have those, we can have that reroute already in there now, and it's just a much better design product once it comes out. Now, we put a lot of emphasis on the stamps here, obviously, because like I was saying before, with the iPad, that one click and drop, or excuse me, one tap and drop, it works really well. And as I said before, this all stems from those initial conversations and setup and standardization of the project. We can't emphasize that enough because, all this information is going to be used throughout the course of construction. After coordination is done, it's still going to be used. The drawings are still going to be referenced. The models are still going to be referenced. So being able to set these up initially, have those stamps dialed in, have your tags dialed in, really goes a long way to getting those projects set up so that the user experience on the iPad is that much better. The other thing I want to hit on is reporting. So on the iPad, you can utilize the reporting tab just like you can on your desktop app, as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection, obviously. But you know, that's something that does get missed. So if someone wants to call out specific information on the fly while they're in the trailer or they're on site, or they just want to see how things are tracking, you can always click on that reporting tool and pull up these charts and reports, just like you can on your desktop application. So pretty straightforward, but something that does get missed quite a bit when we're talking about the iPad user training. Now, I know we do have a bunch of questions rolling in here. I'm through my list of things that I definitely wanted to hit on while we were talking today. So I think, Brett, if we could open it up to those questions, I think I'm good right now to start answering those. That is, unless there's something that you think I missed that's worth showing to the group.
No, I think that everything was covered pretty well there. I'm actually in the process of answering Andrew's last question. So honestly, as of right now, I don't think we have any unless others start rolling in.
Okay.
But no, I thought everything was covered very well. We just want to make sure that the users on the other end of the line are seeing the value in our mobile device, and I think that was explained pretty clearly here.
Yeah. And you know, while I know I just saw another person raise their hand, so there might be another question rolling in here. But you know, we do get questions about the types of 2D information that comes into Revizto. I was just on a call earlier today about having layout drawings available to the installation team, right? It's up to you guys what information you want to house on the 2D side of Revizto. But the one thing to keep in mind is that if you are pulling those layout drawings in here, and you know, for instance, I have an example here of a slab, a self-performed slab drawing for concrete installation. The Revizto can help you be the review tool to you know, comb over the drawings, see if there's any missing information on the drawing, and really have those end users review it, so that you can get that live feedback of what needs to be fixed, right? And this is all going to go back to those stamps, because those stamps are going to be pre-populated in here for things that they want to call out, things that need to be fixed, whether it's a missing dimension or a missing penetration, or even is it for a specific concrete pour. You know, you can have a stamp or even a tag to quantify those specific pieces of information, so you can easily sort them in the issue tracker and easily report on them. So in other words, I can add lift 1, or in this case, this would be level 2 slab. I could have a tag for level 2 slab and include that with any of the issues that I'm documenting on here. Sort by those items in the issue tracker, so that becomes my to-do list if I'm the detailer as far as things that I've missed. And we can also push out the reports from the web portion of Revizto that's going to showcase that list as well, and pull those up in meetings as you guys start to close out that information. So again, this is something that we're seeing used more and more. And whether it's you internally as you know, the GC who has a self-performed team, masonry or concrete, or if you're a subcontractor, a mechanical contractor or electrical contractor, all that reviewing can be done here in Revizto. And you can utilize those stamps to call out those pieces of information and really report on it quickly and easily, which is basically going to you know, get you guys those better drawn drawings, because having those extra eyes on them is going to pick up some of those things that might become questions as the installation is starting to take place.
Awesome. So we've got a few more questions rolling in. I think everyone was so in tune to what you were saying, they weren't typing during the whole time. So let's roll through some of these real quick. So Maggie, I'm going to answer Maggie's question first. So hi, Maggie. It's been a long time since I chatted with you. So good to see you in here. So Sean, the question is, are subs use 3D CAD for their coordination? So if they make their shop drawings in a DWG file and not Revit, is there a way to integrate those drawings like Revit drawings, or can we only do the PDF and try to match it up manually for the overlay? So I'll go ahead and give this one a shot here. So right now, the reason that we can do these overlays automatically across a lot of these projects is because of the nature of programs like Tekla, Revit, ArchiCAD, and all of these programs that really incorporate that 2D information and make it intelligent with the model itself. With CAD programs, it gets a little bit more difficult because the viewpoints aren't necessarily related to an XYZ coordinate as you're placing these on the sheet. So right now, it does have to be done manually. However, we have been brainstorming about different ways to make this work from CAD products. However, we just haven't come up with a solution for it yet. And so we don't have an ETA, but we do understand the value of potentially bringing that to the market. So it is something that we're looking at. So not the best answer in the world, which essentially equates to you're still doing it the way that you've always done it, Maggie, but just trying to be honest, we are thinking about it. We just don't have an ETA on any of that functionality. Now, heading on to the next question. So, Joandre asks, I downloaded for the field and the project does not say local. It shows as offline. Is this what it should show at this point? If you are not connected to an internet connection, this is most likely what it's going to show here, where it shows that it's offline, but it is not a local project.
Yep, absolutely, Brett. So if it says offline, just like Brett said, you're not going to be connected to a Wi-Fi connection. If you download for field, what it ends up showing is it'll say the last time it's actually been downloaded for field here as well.
Awesome. So, and if any of our answers are not completely sufficient for what you're really asking, as all of our existing customer knows, you can always email us as well, and we can get much more detailed. So, moving down to the next question, Andrew asks, can you do takeoffs of existing conditions using markups within an issue? For example, ceiling lights installed or not installed as part of a site review. So, we don't have any quantification tools, such as calculating the amounts of a certain object or the volume of any sort of material inside of a specific object. One thing you can do for this, though, is per something like a light count or a hanger count or anything like that, is we can use our issues and filters to actually come up with a count list for that. We don't necessarily have any tool specific to take off. However, in a situation where you're talking about ceiling lights installed or not, that's where we can create a stamp for missing ceiling lights. We can stamp those locations from an iPad in the field and report that information out automatically to anyone that needs that information. So not necessarily specific takeoff tools, but definitely applicable to the stamp functionality. So I think Sean's actually going through and kind of showing some of that right now. Do you have anything to add to that, Sean?
No, I think that's perfect, Brett. I mean, just like you said, there's going to be a little bit of a manual process to push or to put those stamps in the model. But at the end of the day, as Brett was saying, you can utilize the filters here to come in and look at this by the specific stamp and then get your count here. within the issue count. And
Yep.
then the other thing that's great about this is obviously if something's missing, someone's going to have to go in and install it eventually, right? So that becomes an exercise of assigning it to the person who needs to go and install that light. And then when they actually install the light, they come in here into Revizto. They can take a photo of that light once it's installed, change that status to solved, and then that way you guys can come in, look at all the solved ones, do your inspection, and then change these to a closed issue, and then it's done.
Yep, and all of that ties into reports as well. So if you're looking to send a sheet out that says, here are where the missing lights are and here's how many of them there are, you can always utilize the reporting tool to do that as well.
Yep, exactly.
So the next question, and this is a good one for this topic. What is the difference between 2D and docs on the iPad? So, Sean, you wanna tackle this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So the docs integration that we have, and I'm gonna click on that docs integration over here on the right hand side. The docs integration here, it's a mirror of these documents as they're housed in these platforms. So in other words, if I'm connected to a network connection, I can open up any of these and view them. Your permission levels are going to be set by the permissions of those hosting platforms. Now, where we can actually add some more value for these things being hosted in those other platforms is you see here we have this little icon that says 2D. That means that I've actually pushed these documents into 2D, and they have actually, if I open up my architectural, you'll see that similar Procore icon here. They've actually replaced the initial sheet that I brought in from Revit. So the documents being stored in this instance, Procore.
I think we lost you a little bit, Sean.
Sorry, say that again?
I think we lost you for maybe about 5 seconds.
Darn it. Okay. So this allows us that icon that says 2D, that's indicating that I've actually pushed these documents into the 2D side of Revizto, where it's going to be downloaded automatically. And I'm going to utilize that in a 2D in the 2D way here in Revizto, where I can open this up, do the overlay, so on and so forth. But what basically happened is the documents over here replaced the 2D documents that initially were brought into Revizto. As I said, you're going to be able to see any of this information if you're connected to Wi-Fi. You can also, by utilizing this button right here, cache any of these pieces, any of these documents locally to your device as well. So I can have the ability to see these offline, but I need to specify that. And you can see that there's an icon here which allows me to see that I actually specified that as well. Now, the other thing we can do with these documents is we can also tie them to issues in the issue tracker, okay? So if I come in here and I click on my little paperclip down there, you'll see that we've added the docs. I can click on docs and I can attach this drawing to that issue, which means that whenever this updates in that hosting platform, that Procore Docs, I'm going to see the latest and greatest information when I click on it. So I don't have to constantly relink a PDF drawing into that issue. It's automatically going to update based upon what's happening here in that document's location.
Yeah, and another thing I'd like to point out about this as well is just as Sean pointed out that document attached to that issue is always going to be up to date. If you think about it, the docs is really kind of a way to reach out and grab your contractual documents. And by putting them into 2D, you're putting them into the issue tracking environment. You're integrating those into the 3D world, like what you see when we normally demo Revizto. But now those documents are always up to date with the contractual set, when we've been talking to general contractors over this last year, they love, a lot of them love the fact that we can merge the drawings and 3D together. But one of the concerns that we've always had is, well, these are Revit drawings. These are not the contractually issued drawings, which is what we work off of. This integration essentially solves that problem by allowing you to reach out to these document management systems, use Revizto as it's always been intended with the current contractual documents. All right, let's see here. So moving on, can the teachable moment or best practices stamp be a star shaped or a different shape with who shared it, or maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I get the gist of the question here. And alternate shapes of our stamps is something that has been requested and is in our quality of life upgrade list, such as being able to choose something like a hexagon or a rectangle or something along those lines. We don't necessarily have any stamp that's required to be used for a certain type of issue. So what we think is that if we can get around to where we can release these different shapes, then our end users can determine what those shapes mean internally. Greg Roberts asked, would overlays from the sheets remain connected after 2D or 3D updates? The answer to that is yes, in both scenarios. Revizto really works on an XYZ coordinate basis. And so all of the information that you're putting in and putting out is basically being slipped in and slipped out, and all of your issues are remaining at their XYZ location, regardless if it's on a sheet or in the model. So as sheets update, they automatically go into place. As models update, they go into place as well. And the overlays will remain connected. There are a few things that can cause them not to be connected anymore, such as a view moving from A100 to A101 or something along those lines. But as long as your views remain in the same spot and your model coordinates don't change, this all happens without any need to address it. Can stamps like best practice be exported to managers for a review report? Absolutely. Our reporting functionality really goes everything from super high level down to very, very granular on a user basis. So Sean's actually showing that right now. So if you want to, Sean, I'll let you talk about it a little bit here.
Yeah, so what I did is I went into I'll just X out of there. I just went into our reporting platform on the web, right? And from here, we can generate, you can generate a specific report, or we can obviously generate these charts that show live metrics. They have that visual side of the metrics themselves. Now we can come in here, and this is all based upon the filtered issues that we have down here. So if you remember those teachable moments, those are just stamps. So we can come in here and we can filter by stamps, right? You can always filter by stamp abbreviations, and then it's just a matter of searching for that specific stamp that we had in there. I think it was duct reroute, right? Right, and then that's going to give us our list of issues here. Whether you're creating that chart or if you're just doing the list of issues, it's the same process. So if I go back to the reports here, I add a new report. It's all based upon those filtered issues that we're bringing in based upon those stamps. And it's going to be that same list of stamps that we had before. And then that report can obviously be sent out. It's not just, it doesn't necessarily just have to be sent out when you want. You can always pre-generate this when you want it to go out. Maybe it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 a.m. And all you need to do is include, you know, an individual's email address in that sharing line, and they'll be able to get that email of that report sent directly to their inbox.
Awesome. So Greg Roberts asks, future integrations with other softwares, Google Drive. So right now we integrate with BIM 360, Procore Documents, and Box, mostly because Box is heavily used in our industry. We are planning to expand on the amount of systems that we integrate with. Dropbox, Google Drive, Ignite, Viewpoint, all of these are targeted on our list. We do not have an ETA for any of those specifically, but we plan to roll those out as time passes by. And a lot of that will be based on user feedback and which of these systems are the most popular among our customer base. Rennie asks, are you planning an app for Android? We actually do have an app for Android at this moment. So that is available. I will have to say that Android is a little bit harder for us to develop to, simply because there are so many versions of the Android OS versus iOS or Windows. But we do have an Android app available right now. So that should be you should be able to find that on your app store. If you can't, let us know and I'll try to direct you there as best I can. So the next question we have, Revizto VR, is it just for visualization? The answer to that is no. We have a couple different workflows where we can do issue creation, team-based issue creation, or just visualization. Those three workflows are a little bit different. So if you want to know more details on that, definitely send us an email. Those topics are going to be too lengthy to talk about in the rest of this webinar as we try to get through these questions. But you are more than welcome to reach out to us, and we will make sure that your answers are taken care of. All right, so same thing with the next question about the Oculus Rift. A little tidbit of information. If you want to create issues while you're in a VR headset, plan on using a keyboard and mouse. Now, once again, though, if you want details around that, shoot me an email, and I will definitely direct you to where you need to go. So Andre asks, when can we expect to have spell check? It is coming soon, very soon. So very, very soon. How you set the legal PDF drawing in the actual location in 3D? Pablo asked this question. The way that we've always done this is we have exported our Revit drawings based on the metadata that is basically listed inside the viewport. This is what intelligently connects it to the model. The way that we do this with the contractual drawing is we export the data from Revit, but we don't actually publish the drawing. That allows us to bring in the drawing, have the coordinates assigned to it from the viewpoint, although it's still the contractual drawing. And that's how we've made that work, to where we're actually introducing things like Procore, BIM 360, and box drive documents into our hypermodeling atmosphere.
So the other thing to note there is that will also work with directly bringing in those PDFs. So if you guys are using platforms that are not BIM 360, Procore Docs, or Box, you can still bring in those PDFs and override, just like Brett was saying, the coordinate data as it's coming in with those PDFs.
Yep, that's a great point. Something I forgot to point out. Now, the other thing too is once these 3D sheets are placed, whether it's with the document integration or if it's with PDFs, that is not something that has to happen over and over again as you update the document. So even in a PDF workflow, we set up that 3D overlay once, and we can continually update that PDF as we go through the workflow. So what types of users can create their own stamps? We have access levels that we will determine who can and who cannot do these things. So Why are the markups in Navisworks not getting transferred to Revizto? We can definitely handle that on a support basis, but most likely it has to do with the XML report option. We either generate viewpoints for you for the classes, or we bring in an XML report. That's most likely what's happening there. So it looks like we got a few requests, Dropbox, share file. So we will definitely take that feedback there. All right, so before we get into the final couple Q&As, and we're at our time now, but hopefully we can jump through these just real quick. Can we have the app work on phones for both Apple and Android? We actually are bringing an application to the phones in 2020 with an initial release schedule for Q1 2020 and then advanced functionality as we go throughout the year. So what happens with the stamps if the object where they are placed is moved or deleted? The answer to that is nothing happens to the stamps until clash detection either pushes them out or the person responsible for closing the issue verifies that that object is changed in any way that it needs to happen. So it is either automated through Navisworks clash detection, or the end user is actually the one that closes the issue. Removing objects or adding objects will not affect your issue markups or their location. All right, let's jump over to Q&A real quick. And so it looks like some of these questions we answered in the chat. There's one more down there. If we add a revision number to the end of the file name, will it still be recognized as the same drawing? The answer is yes and no. Automatically, it will be not, but you will be given the option to overwrite an existing drawing in the model. Now, keep in mind that the way we pull metadata is if you are pumping in the same drawing or the same model over and over again, we actually lift the revision number from the Revit, ArchiCAD, Tekla, or any of those title blocks, and you will actually see the revision of the drawing in our application. So in some cases, that may not be needed, but there's a quick answer there. And then the final question we'll leave everyone with, and we will come through these and make sure that we've given answers to everyone. But Jinmin asked, this is a very helpful webinar. Could you share the recording after this? Everyone who registered for this webinar will be delivered the recording as soon as it's ready to go. And then it will also be up on our YouTube page here in a matter of a week or two. All right, so here we go. And one final thing for Andrew here. What happens if it comes from Box? That will always be recognized as the same drawing coming from Box. So shouldn't have any problems there. But Andrew, if we need to talk a little bit more in detail about some of these issues, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to hop on a call with you. But I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'll let Sean do the final sign off. And thanks everyone. And Sean, let's finish her up here.
Yeah, and again, just to echo what Brett said, thanks everyone for joining us today. If you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to email us. And the final thing I'll say from experience in doing some field trainings on projects, it really works well when you actually go out into the field with the iPad. So, sometimes it's easier to sit in the office trailer and walk through Revizto and show it up on a big screen. But I would say it works so much better if everyone, caches the project that you want to work on to the device. You actually walk out onto the site. You stand in front of walls or ducts or other systems that are being installed in the project. You actually point out how to get to those locations within the model. And that really helps the learning curve for those individuals to pick it up quicker, because it's a lot easier to visualize what they're looking at when they're standing in front of it. So just a little tip there. But again, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys signing on, and follow up with emails if you have any additional questions. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.